Okay, let's draw. So I started off with a 20-minute concept sketch. Then I took that and turned it into a flip sketch where I do one half and then turn it over and do a symmetrical tracing of it. You can see side by side the cleanup. From there, I take it into Photoshop and scale it to what I need, get it cleaned, and print it to the media of my choosing. And for this drawing, I chose the Toned Tan Mixed Media Strathmoore 400. I just really like it. It's a thicker paper and it takes the media really well. And the line drawing is already printed out, and so I'm just ready to go and try it out. So my next goal is to get out the brown cool erase and clean up the printed drawing. So I want to make some stuff show back up and more defined, more obvious for the inking. And I'm just going through and making some real world changes. So the first tool I'm going to use is the Pentel brush pen, sepia water-based ink. And I'm going to start to establish some of the line work. It's going to be lost relatively quickly because I'm also using a second tool, which is a Niji water brush. It's the medium tip. And so because the ink is water-based, I'm really kind of pushing it around like watercolor. And because it acts like watercolor, I've got to do more than just draw and ink. I've got to lay down some edges and lay down some more opaque ink and then re-wet it or pick it up. So I need to outline things and start to build a value structure and then use the water to pull it away or change the tone of it. So off camera, I've got another piece of tan paper that I'm testing out the water brush, and I've taken the ink into two little sections of the palette, and I've kind of just dumped it out by squeezing the barrel against the side of the palette, and to where it kind of bled out some ink into it. And then it's like 3 or 4 drops in one, and then 2 drops in another, and then I've added a whole bunch of water. So I basically gave myself like a mid-tone and then a light tone with the ink. So I'm kind of inking and watercoloring at the same time. And then wherever I lay down like a super hard inked edge, I come back and I can soften it with the water brush, because this sepia ink, it has a downfall in that it doesn't dry very fast at all. I mean, it stays wet forever. And then the other folly is that if you get it wet, it reactivates. So if you sneeze on it and there's like a little spittle, it'll make a little ring. So you got to very quickly dab it with a paper towel. So it's good and bad in that you can make gradients, you can rework edges, and it's good for me because I can kind of work translucently and then keep building up a bunch of layers of darks. So I'm starting to establish a system of darks. So one of the things I need to be mindful of when I'm doing a mixed media piece is what I'm going to use to make what with. And very importantly, I'm going to put a glow in between his hands. So I have to make sure that I've created enough contrast with the ink before that happens. I had this idea for the silhouette to where his wardrobe garb would kind of turn into this silhouette frame, and I really wanted it to pop out. So the first thing I had to pay attention to was how deep and dark was I going to make the robe once I did a wash on the background. And I immediately noticed that I could change the tone of it if I added the linen texture to it. So off camera, I dipped the water brush into that mid-tone that I made with the ink wash on the side. So I'm laying it down and it's wet and it looks darker than when it dries, but it's like a mid-tone that I'm laying it down with. So I've kind of created 3 pins in one by having 2 tones of color on the side and a little plastic palette, and then having the full strength pin. So for that back of the silhouette kind of tone to push him forward, I'm taking advantage of the wet on wet watercolor effect of bleeding it down with the darker, more saturated ink and just kind of letting it bleed into that natural form. And so it's nice for making these little gradients. So I'm at, my drawing table is at an angle. So it looks like it's flat for the video, but it's actually pitched at about a 25-degree angle. So those wet on wet techniques run down because of gravity. So if you were laying flat, that would just kind of spread out into the whole full wet area. So be careful with that. So that's like 4 or 5 layers of the dark ink, trying to get it to really layer up and get meaty. But every time you touch it with water, it just reactivates. So I'm going back to referencing over to the left to my concept drawing where I had the floating little orb shapes, or they could be leaves, they could be some kind of energy coming off. It's really important to remember when you're working on pieces like this to try stuff out and learn the tool. For me, it's more important to be finished and not perfect and try out the possibilities. Like I said, this is only my 5th drawing with this Sepia PenBrush, but it's something that I really wanted to explore and understand. And the advantage of printing out your drawing onto the media paper is you can just keep trying it until you get it right. It's a wonderful way to work. When I did this one, I was like daydreaming about how I could do it a different way. So now I picked up the colored pencils and I'm trying to refine the drawing. So I'm working with a brown colored pencil and a black colored pencil back and forth. And I'm trying to get things stronger, cleaner edges. And I'm really not worried about going back and trying to layer ink on top of it. It'll resist a little bit from the if I'm too waxy and press too hard. But as long as it's like gradients, it'll be okay. I can still paint over it. But I just want to reestablish some of the drawing that got lost with all the layers of the ink wash. And now I'm picking up the white colored pencil and bringing that hair out. I had this, in my imagination, I had this white kind of glowing hair. And so I'm just slowly building it up. I'm not going too crazy too fast. And now I'm going to start to lay down sideways the barrel of the pencil to get a really kind of sandy kind of texture, to get that little smoky gradient going. And that was like 3 or 4 layers of me laying the pencil down sideways. So the video is sped up so fast. This was 2 hours and 10 minutes total of drawing and painting. And it's sped up to, what is it, 9.5 minutes? To make a gradient with colored pencil, you have to remember to come at it from multiple angles to get the tooth of the paper. And there I am laying it down again. I'm laying the barrel of the pencil down sideways so that it gets softer. And I also have a gel pen that I'm using. So I'm coming in with a ruler and I'm adding the arrows. And later on I'm going to ink over the colored pencil, but I wanted to not get a wonky arrow, so I wanted to lay it down with the ruler. So to help my glowing orb effect, I'm going to need to grab my Posca white pen, and it is so white and so brilliant that it is really just going to send it off. And I just love how it adds that extra dimension of white. Whenever I'm using it to create a glow or orbs, I have to remember to just dissipate them over distance. As it goes away from the center of the brightest point of the glow, they kind of get more sporadic and farther away, and it just kind of helps our overall visual gradient effects.
All right. Thanks for watching. Greatly appreciate that. Please like and follow the Clinton Millsap Artist Workshop page so that you can be notified of the upcoming workshop schedules. You can get notified when I go live. You can see more videos like this one that are coming up, and of course tutorials. And then once you become a member of the page, you can also send in your artwork, get questions answered, message, and find out how to get help on anything you're working on. We post the material, we post the paper, we post the drawing utensils, every kind of information you might need. We try to put it up as soon as possible. Once again, thanks.
Coming up next,